Members, when this bill was voted out of finance over a week ago, Senator West asked a question: is this the best bill that we can produce? And my answer to you is yes. This bill voted out of committee 11-4. This is a conservative bill. This bill maintains and preserves critical state programs. This is a smart bill. The committee substitute to House Bill 1 appropriates $176.5 billion in all funds, which is $11 billion decrease from 2010 and 11. Yet this bill, when coupled with Senate Bill 22 and Senate Bill 23, maintains all essential services to the people of the state of Texas without raising taxes. It does this by addressing our top priorities: public education funding, health and human services, public safety. The process used to write this budget was the most open and inclusive in my entire legislative career. We did something that we haven't done before. We formed 6 7-member subcommittees to work on this bill. I must acknowledge, before I go any farther, the incredibly hard work of all 14 fellow members of the Senate Finance Committee. Every one of you, Republican or Democrat, contributed to this bill, and this bill is a better bill because of your work. I want to thank my Vice Chair in particular, Senator Hinojosa, because it was his help and his leadership that made critical differences in many of the subcommittee recommendations, which by and large were recommended with bipartisan majorities every time. In public education, we formed a subcommittee that was led by Senator Florence Shapiro. Senator Florence Shapiro and her 6 fellow senators added $5.9 billion to public education above the base bill. In Health and Human Services subcommittee led by Senator Nelson and her 6 fellow senators, they restored funding for many critical reimbursement rates that were cut in the base bill, such as nursing homes, such as Medicaid physician and dental rates, such as foster care rates. Senator Nelson and her senators also maintained funding for all Medicaid waiver slots that we currently have in this state, and maintained mental health funding, which all senators believe is critical to the well-being and operation of our state. Senator Whitmire was asked to chair the subcommittee on public safety, and he and his fellow 6 senators produced a remarkably good bill with respect to public safety. As far as I know, there is no controversy on the level and adequacy of funding for this essential state service. Additionally, we substantially increased funding for border security through the leadership of Senator Williams. Our state will be safer over the next 2 years because of their efforts than it otherwise would be if we do not pass this bill. Senator West chaired the Higher Education Subcommittee on Higher Education, and he and his 6 fellow members led an effort to restore funding for student financial aid, Senator Ellis, by $306 million. This bill added additional funding for student financial aid to the tune of $306 million increase. Funding was also restored for community colleges, and the deep cuts in general academic funding were mitigated through their efforts. Senator Williams chaired the Natural Resources and Economic Development Subcommittee. through his leadership and the 6 fellow senators that were on that committee, I think this budget maintains the state's momentum to improve mobility and safety on our highways. The budget that Senator Williams and his fellow senators crafted in this area will actually increase the amount of contract lettings on our state highways over the next 2 years compared to 10 and 11. Senator Corona, it also authorizes the issuance of Prop 12 bonds, which you led and we passed in this legislature 2 years ago, in order to fund those projects, and we have set out in the bill exactly how that $3 billion is going to be used to improve our state. Senator Duncan had one of the most difficult assignments in determining how to pay for this, and his work with the Fiscal Matters Subcommittee, which also consisted of 6 fellow senators, culminated in Senate Bill 1811, which we passed last week. That bill is essential. It must pass the Senate and it must pass the House, and we must agree on a number close to the number that left our Senate last week in order to finance this appropriations bill. That bill has to be passed in conjunction with this in order for the bill to work. And I want to publicly thank Senator Duncan and his fellow senators for what was a most difficult job to find over $4 billion in non-tax revenue for the next 2 years that will be certified by the Comptroller. Members, this, under the circumstances that we're under, and is a very good bill, and nobody has to apologize for voting for it. Unfortunately, because of the controversy over the method of finance, and that's what we've been stuck on for the last week, how do we pay for a very good bill? The bill's merits have been overlooked. In order to address the concerns on the method of finance, if you will vote to suspend today, I will propose a floor amendment to change the method of finance in this bill without materially affecting the bill. The method of finance change will not materially affect the underlying appropriations in this bill. This floor amendment will do the following. It will remove the Article 9, Section 1809 provision that contained the Rainy Day Fund contingency. It is not necessary to be in this bill in order to finance this bill. That was in there as a contingency only, and the contingency is not necessary. It will reduce, the floor amendment will also reduce Medicaid funding by $1.25 billion of general revenue, and it will provide for a contingency cut of 1.2% across the board, save and except public schools and debt service. With that floor amendment, and with changes that I anticipate asking you to make in House Bill 4, this bill is fully paid for without the need to resort to the Rainy Day Fund contingency in House Bill 1. I also believe, with the dramatic improvements in our state economy, the Comptroller will be able to identify additional revenues, making the contingency cuts, if any, unnecessary. For example, April sales tax collections in our state year over year have increased by 11%, more than twice what was predicted back in January. In fact, state revenue is growing at a rate twice as fast as what the Comptroller recommended what the Comptroller estimated in January. The good news is our state's economy is coming back, and it's coming back faster than we thought in January. And that's always been the issue. There is a direct and close correlation between the government that we all want to fund and the people that have to pay for it. And when the private sector is healthy And when the private sector is growing, it throws off incredible amounts of revenue that we can use to fund our budget. And I'm here to report today that things are going to be better tomorrow than they were yesterday. Texas economy is coming back. The statistics are clear, and the most specific evidence of that is the growth in our sales tax revenues, which year over year is approaching more than 10%. Members, this is a good budget. Members, please vote to suspend for this budget. It is a far better budget than any alternative that is out there. It is a far better budget than any reasonable alternative in the future. It meets the essential needs of our state. It reduces spending by focusing on our priorities, and it allows our state to move forward. Mr. President, if there are no questions, I would move suspension.